Hey there, nation, and welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander Cheapskate, and we are back with another episode of Hobby Side. And on today's video, we are taking a look at our showcase for our Ashwaste Nomad gang for Necromunda Ashwastes. And as you can see, this gang is now fully completed, fully painted, and ready to go raiding along the ash roads of the wastelands of Necromunda. So for those of you guys who've been longtime viewers of this channel, you've actually seen this gang being showcased quite a bit on this channel earlier. And the reason why is because this is actually part of a $50 challenge that we did for ourselves for a cheap shot of how you can actually get into Necromunda Ashwaste for only $50. And on that video, I actually showcased this gang and putting it together and assembling the materials and painting it and getting it ready to put out into the Ashwaste for your first Necromunda campaign. And that's exactly what we have going on over here. So now we're taking a closer look at this gang. We'll be talking about its design elements, how we went about going ahead and building it, and what it basically contains. So let's get this video on a roll. So right off the bat, the thing you'll notice about this gang is that this gang is actually very proxy heavy, and the reason why is because of the $50 challenge. I actually found this guy at my local game store was actually selling a bunch of used sprue for pennies on the dollar. He actually had a bunch of AdMech miniatures, Adeptus Mechanicus, for those of you guys who are not aware what that faction is in Warhammer 40,000. They had a bunch of guys with heads and torsos and guns and stuff. He also had some Gene Stealer cult as well as Imperial Guardsmen, so because of that I used those to basically put this gang together. Now I know a lot of viewers would actually say, well, Commander Cheapskate, that's actually not a Ashwaste Nomad gang, it's primarily AdMech. Well, yeah, I hear you on that, but Adeptus Mechanicus as well as Ashwaste Nomads actually share a lot of similarities together, being their aesthetic. Both groups wear very long coats, both groups have cybernetics, both groups have tubes and tanks and things running off of them. Both groups have weird esoteric weapons that shoot energy that people have not seen in an age or two. They wear gas masks, they wear respirators. I mean, they're pretty much exactly the same group. The only difference is how you basically color them up, and the fact that, you know, Ashwaste Nomads primarily ride giant insects primarily. Other than that, though, they're very, very similar. So with that design idea in mind, I decided to use those miniatures in order to help build this for that $50 challenge. It actually cost me only 20 bucks to get all the minis that you see here with their bases from that guy from that used sprue, so that part was absolutely fantastic. And that's exactly what I used to kind of build the core of this gang. And then afterwards, for the insects, or the roll the dustback Hellamites, I actually got those from a Dollar Tree. There's actually a toy line called Final Faction, and in that Final Faction $1.25 toy pack, you get two of these insect-looking creatures for $1.25, and they're called Perimeter Defense. I believe they're called crawlers, I believe is what they're called. And so because of that, I was able to get four of these for $2.50. So $22.50 for those. And then of course I spent another $1.25 a piece for these big huge monsters. I believe they're called Perimeter Defense Dominators, I believe they're called. Same line of toys. And I got two of these to be the Arthromite Dune Scuttlers, which is the brutes that the Ashwaste Nomads can actually recruit. So that's exactly what went into the core of this gang, and that's pretty much where I got all the miniatures in order to make up this gang as well. Now, as for the painting on this one, of course, we decided to kind of go with this kind of gray, ashen, kind of dirty look for these guys, because these guys are Ashwaste Nomads. They primarily live out in the wastelands. So we primarily undersprayed these guys with black primer, and then I dry brushed them with successive lighter gray, layers of gray, as well as white. I then glazed, which is basically where you take acrylic paint and mix it with water, to the point where it's almost the consistency of milk. I used burnt umber to do half of the gang in this dusty kind of brown looking cloak, but at the same time you can still see the ash and soot on it, and the other half of the gang I pretty much left alone for the most part. Now I put a lot of metallics on these guys because these guys are primarily Adeptus Mechanicus toys, miniatures, so because of that they have a lot of cybernetics going on for these guys. So use a lot of copper, a lot of silver, a lot of gold, a lot of bronze in order to create this kind of like mechanical look for these guys. And then I used wintergreen for the green elements. I used Tahitian blue for the blue elements to give them some little bit of accent colors to these guys. Now as for the bugs, it's pretty simple. All I did for those guys is that I spray painted them with a dark mocha color from Rust-Oleum as a base coat for both miniatures. So I sprayed the Arthromite Dune Scuttlers as well as these guys in the same color. And then I dry brushed these guys with Territorial Beige as well as light gray from Folk Art to give them their look. And then I did the same thing with the dark brown elements here, and then I of course painted their bodies, as you can see right here. Painted their bodies up with territorial beige, and then I dry brushed it with some light mocha and khaki for their flesh. And then use pink and green for these weird looking eyes and mouths on these creatures. And then use different colored paints for the eyes on the Dustspike Hellamites. Also added some silver to the claws that they were walking upon, like it looked like they're like horseshoes, kind of like for bugs, kind of. And that's what I pretty much did for those guys. And then of course I painted all these guys over with Midwax Polyshade Mission Note color to do an oil wash over them. I did exactly the same thing with their bases as well, so to give that ash waste base that kind of contaminated, dirty look to it. And then rimmed all the bases in Skyline by Folk Art, like I do for all my Necromunda miniatures. So the nice thing about this gang is I can either have these guys be Dustspike Hellamites, or we can actually make them be mounted on the ground. Now I know you might think, well, Commander Chiefs, they look kind of hokey being mounted on top of the insects like that. Maybe so, but then again, this only group here maybe cost what? $750 for these 4 miniatures, as opposed to $55 for a Dustspike Hellamite box set. I'll learn to live with the way they look for the price involved. It's like a tenth of the cost. So I'll find a way to forgive myself for that one. Now this guy here that's coming out of the spider hole, this is actually going to be the Arthurmite Dune Scuttler Tamer, because it represents the fact that he lives like underground. He's coming out of a hole, and he's going to be the brute that you hire, hang around you hire to recruit and control these 2 brutes, which are Arthurmite Dune Scuttlers. So this is the gang in its entirety so far, and it looks pretty awesome. I'm really satisfied with the end result for the paint job on this one. I'm really happy with the cost of the gang as well, having it only be $50 for paint, assembly, the miniatures, and everything. You can't even get a starting box of just 4 of these guys on Dustspike Hellamites for that cost. I was able to outfit the entire gang with brutes as well. And in fact, I'm actually planning on adding some more to this gang, because as the book said, they said that the Ash Waste Nomads ride macro insects, which tells me that the Games Workshop is planning on releasing more miniatures kits for the Ash Waste Nomads. Now currently the way the rules stand, your entire gang does not necessarily need to be mounted on vehicles in order to participate in an Ash Waste campaign. However, I have the sneaking suspicion that that rule is going to come down the pike later on, just because in the Ash Waste, the lore is most people have to be either mounted on a giant vehicle of some sort or have individual rides themselves, because there's no walking around the Ash Waste. It's too dangerous to walk around, and you have to have a vehicle in order to survive. So because of that, I do believe that larger insects as well as larger house-specific vehicles will be coming down the pike later on for the expansion to the Ash Waste. So in order to get ahead of that and get ahead of the power curve, I actually got some larger insects as well that I'm currently painting up to add to this gang later on, especially when those things kind of arrive. And in fact, I'm going to actually pause this video real quick. I'm going to come back and clear this table off and then bring those miniatures back on the table so that way you know exactly what I'm talking about. Alright, so now we're back. As you can see here, we have some more miniatures on the table. These are actually a bunch of toys I managed to scrounge up for the Ash Waste Nomads. As you can see, we got some really big looking scorpion looking type of creatures, as well as some smaller insect ones. So like I said, according to the lore and the rulebook we saw from the Book of the Outlands, the Games Workshop mentioned more macro insects that the Ash Waste Nomads actually use. So because of that, that tells me that Games Workshop is planning on releasing some more insect variant types. Maybe in the next expansion, they'll actually introduce beasts. In earlier editions of Necromunda from back in the 90s, there was an option for you to ride animals, beasts of burden out in the wastelands. And they actually had large vehicles, large beasts, small beasts, and medium-sized beasts, and they all had their own little stats and their own injury tables and so forth. So I imagine they'll probably do that for the Ash Waste Nomads as well with giant insects, and that's the reason why I kind of like jumped the curve a little bit and got ahead of it to add these new miniatures to that line, so that way we can have something like that. So let's go and talk what we have here. So first of all, we have this toy-looking thing. I'm not sure where we got this from, to be honest. I think it was actually given to me by some friends. I think they found it in a garage sale or something. But whatever this is, it looks perfect because you can put a guy on a 32mm base right on top of this thing. It looks like something from Evangelion, Neon Genesis Evangelion, to actually be perfectly honest. But it looks all kinds of awesome. So that's probably like I would imagine that'd be like a light type animal. That's probably what that would be like. Our medium types would be these two creatures here. Once again, this is also from that line of Final Faction. The Karn faction is what that alien faction is called. Looks like this. Looks really, really cool. It's got these bugs with twin cannons mounted on their backs. So I imagine that'll be like a medium type vehicle with some guns that you can mount on these things, for example. Just like our Dune Scuttler Arthurmites in the background there. And then probably the biggest creature that we have here are these two creatures, which I'm calling affectionately rad scorpions, like from the Fallout games. As you can see, they're giant scorpion type monsters with huge scorpion-like claws. They also have some stingers in the back as well. This is actually a vehicle called the Rumbler that's made by that same game, Final Faction, from the Dollar Tree. As weird as it may sound, these things are actually $1.25 a piece. Now the legs are actually an accessory kit to one of the monsters that he actually has multiple limbs on him. And what I did is I basically mounted 3 sets of those legs that cost $1.25 a piece to the bottom of this thing using green stuff. In fact, let me go lift it up a little bit so you can see the green stuff there at the bottom that I used to mount those legs on to make it look like a giant insect. And I did that for 2 of these things. And I painted these guys up this turquoise color because for those of you guys who are fans of Fallout, you know exactly what color rad scorpions are. They're that nice kind of pale turquoise blue looking color. So I'm going to paint these guys up as well. Now the nice part is the insides are actually hollow, and the reason why is because that's where you're supposed to put the rider for this Final Faction toy inside of. But I'm going to use that to actually be a large class type monster with Ashway's Nomads riding these things, and then you know, using them as large vehicles, for example. So no official rules have dropped yet from Games Workshop for these kind of things, but these are assets that I'm working on myself, so that way when it does actually pop up, anybody who wants to play Ashway's Nomads in my gaming group can actually do so and take advantage of these creatures and use them in their campaign, which I'm really looking forward to if they actually do that, which will be awesome. So yeah, I plan on painting these things up to look like rad scorpions from Fallout. As you can see, I'm already started painting these guys up in the brown as well as the tan color that we see earlier. This thing I'll probably paint up in a tan and brown color as well, but for the rad scorpions, I really want them to stick out because they remind me of Fallout, and that's the reason why I'm painting them that way, to make them look vastly different. Plus, it contrasts nicely with all the browns and metallic elements that you see in the background for the Ashway's Nomads, and I think that'd be really cool to add to it. So this is actually the next step that I'm working on now for the Ashway's Nomads, and then of course we'll talk about exactly how that comes out later on. Alright you guys, so there you have it. This is the Ashway's Nomad gang that we put together for our campaigns of Necromunda Ashwastes. Now, just to give you guys an overview of what the composition of this gang will be, we have 3 Ashway's Nomad warriors with long rifles. We have a leader character. We have 2 dust runners with blast rifles or blast carbines, however you want to fit them out. We have 2 champions, one with a flamer type weapon or a Venegaster, another character with a heavy weapon of some sort. We also have that Watcher champion that's mounted on a Dustback Helmite, so that character can control the weather. We have 3 Dustback riders riding Dustback Helmites. We have the Arthurite Beast Handler hanging around, as well as 2 Arthurite Dune Scuttlers to start off the gang. And of course, if more rules pop up for the rest of the larger insects, we'll of course include them in our campaign and paint those up. So yeah, there you guys have it. This is our Studios Ashway's Nomad gang. So that's good with this, you guys. As always, please feel free to like, comment, and or subscribe. Your guys' input is invaluable to us as always. Also check us out on Facebook, Instagram, as well as blog.com for all the latest, greatest hobby news related to this channel. That's good for this one, you guys. We'll catch you guys next one. Peace out and stay classy.